I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, you guys might have heard that one before. I mean, you should be familiar with it. They're the opening lines to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous I Have a Dream speech that he gave on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963. And if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I was a little crunched on time when I was originally writing this speech. And so I did what any other college-age student entering a public speaking competition would do. I Googled greatest speech of all time. And so when this one came up, I figured, well, I should just do that. But upon further analysis of the speech, I kind of came to the conclusion that if I tried to emulate what Dr. King did on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, it would make little to no sense at all. Now, don't get me wrong, Dr. King was a magician with his words, and he was a technician of delivering them. But I don't really think that those are the ingredients that made his speech so important. It wasn't necessarily the contents that were so impactful, but rather the context into which they were spoken. Dr. King spoke at a time of great oppression in America, where black men and black women had to persevere through severe racial injustice. He noticed a problem that was happening and chose to take a stand. He did not wait. He did not pause. He did not say, oh, I'll just wait until things get really bad to take a stand. He just spoke. And I think that's exactly the opposite of where we stand as a society when it comes to raising up biblical men of God. We no longer have men who are willing to take a stand, so that when things do go wrong and problems do occur, we sit and we wait, drowning in this ocean of complacency, tangled up in these vines of our own selfish desires, choked by worldly things. Instead, we wait until things get really bad to do something about it. Now, conveniently for you, I came up with a name for this phenomenon. And when I tell you that I came up with it, I mean I Googled it too. It's called the region beta paradox. Now, those are big words for me, so let me see if I can explain them. Imagine if you were to travel to the store and go a mile or less. You might walk it. Now, imagine if you were to travel 2 miles or more. You would almost certainly drive it. So paradoxically, you would go 2 miles quicker than you would go 1 mile. Now, what this means is that sometimes worse situations can be better than better situations. Are you following? Let me give another example. Imagine you have a friend who works an office job, your typical standard 9 to 5. The pay is decent, it's not good, not great. They have an okay relationship with their boss. The benefits are fine. This person would actually be better off if their situation was worse, because it would galvanize them into action, into quitting their job and finding a better one. Now, this only becomes a problem if you choose only to act after crossing a certain threshold of badness. That's where region beta is. So if things are good in your life, great, no problem. If things are bad in your life, great, activation energy to do something about it. But if things are just about passable, that is complacency. And so it's clear that this issue is real in our society, and it brings up 2 questions. Number 1, where do we see it? And number 2, what do we do about it? Because you cannot attempt to solve a problem that you cannot first identify. And I might be a communications major, so I'm not really a big numbers guy, but just hang with me on some of these statistics where men have failed and have become complacent. 1 in every 5 men have left a marriage once or more in their lives. Survey results show that 20% of men admit to cheating on their partner while they're still married. 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorders come from a fatherless home. 70% of adolescent patients in drug and alcohol treatment centers originate from homes without fathers. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 1 in every 4 children grow up without a father in the home. I'll say that last one again. 1 in every 4 children grow up without a father in their home. I'll say that last one in a different way. 1 in every 4 children are failed by the men who are supposed to lead in their lives because those men chose comfortability over responsibility and have failed to do well with the family in which they were trusted by God to lead. These statistics are not by chance. They are by choice. A choice made by thousands of men to comply with complacency. And so that brings up question number 2, what do we do about it? Well, the answer is simple, really. React. As men, we must become aware of the world around us and respond to it with love and with care and with initiative. We are to raise the standard of what it means to be a biblical man of God. And in order to do that, we must also understand what that looks like. And so for me, I look at Joseph. You guys know Joseph. Joseph like Joseph and Mary. Joseph was basically the guy who God told, hey, I'm going to give you this baby that is not yours. You're going to have to travel 90 miles with a donkey so that he can be delivered next to a bunch of farm animals. Oh, and by the way, good luck, because he happens to be the most important baby of all time. That's the Joseph that I look at. Because that Joseph lived a very simple life. He was a carpenter. He made good money. He had no reason to do anything greater. However, God called him to be more, and he answered. So that when God needed a father for Jesus, when Herod sent soldiers to murder him, when the family needed to flee the country, when they needed to make the long journey home, when the family needed a roof over their head and food on the table and sandals on their feet, Joseph answered the call. When Joseph looked down at baby Jesus and he looked into his eyes, he did not see a hint of his own eyes. And when he looked down at the face of baby Jesus, he did not see a hint of his own face like any other biological father would. However, that carpenter still led and showed the Lord of all creation how to hew down into lumber the very trees that he planted at the dawn of creation. Why? Because God called him to. And God is asking the same of men today. Proverbs 1:32 says that the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. Can you imagine if Martin Luther King Jr. got to the podium that day, and he was just like, I'll tell him about my dream on another day. If he stepped up on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and was like, nah, I'll wait until things get really bad to say something. Honestly, I think that would have done the people even more injustice. And so my goal here tonight is not to give the men in the room a step-by-step on what it looks like to live in biblical manhood. Nor is my goal to hand out a pamphlet on what it means to be a man of God, because I don't know if I could write that pamphlet. However, my goal here tonight is to simply sound the alarm, so that men in the room may understand where we have fallen short when it comes to being men of God, and women in the room may understand where that bar is for biblical manhood, so that we may be held accountable to it. And I want to end here tonight with a call away from this comfortable, complacent cowardliness. Because at the end of the day, there is no difference between being a hero and being a coward, because both are the same on the inside. The only difference is that when things stray away from God, one takes action while the other sits and waits in complacency. And so to the men in the room, I ask you tonight, which one are you going to be?